All right, let's get right into it. You know those little habits we all have, the ones we kind of think are weird? Well, what if they're not random quirks at all? What if they're actually a map, a blueprint for how your mind is wired to be efficient, to protect you, and to find clarity? Today, we're going to decode the hidden psychology behind some of your most misunderstood traits. Seriously, have you ever caught yourself in a full-on debate with yourself and thought, am I going crazy? Or what about that feeling where you just need to take a long walk by yourself? Not because you're mad, but just to think? Yeah, those feelings are super common, and trust me, psychology has some really fascinating answers for why we do it. And this is the main takeaway right here. These behaviors, they are not flaws. They're not signs that something's wrong with you. They're actually logical patterns your brain has built over years. So let's start reframing these habits. Let's move away from judging ourselves and get into really understanding why we are the way we are. So first up, let's talk about the mind that is just built for efficiency. You know, what society might label as lazy or messy or even indecisive? Well, from a psychological view, that can actually be a sign of a really intelligent and complex mind doing its thing. This right here gets to the heart of what's called cognitive complexity. See, for a lot of people with high IQs, it's not that they're overthinking because they're anxious. It's that their brains are literally wired to see more possibilities, more connections, more potential outcomes. So what looks like you being indecisive is actually your brain running a deep, complex analysis to find the absolute best path forward. And this explains so much, right? This is why a brilliant person can have a desk that looks like a complete disaster zone. It's not that they're disorganized in general. It's about where they choose to spend their energy. Their brain says, structuring this complex idea is way more important than stacking these papers. It's mental efficiency in its purest form. This same logic applies to ambition too. Think about that person who seems kind of lazy but is also weirdly driven. They're not avoiding work. Their brain is resisting pointless work. Psychology calls this being selectively disciplined. If a task lines up with a big, meaningful goal, they can lock in with this incredible focus. But for busy work, their brain just wisely decides to save its energy. Oh, and it doesn't stop there. Talking to yourself, that's just you using your own voice as an external hard drive to organize complicated thoughts. Getting totally obsessed with a new topic for a few days, that's just your brain's curiosity system firing on all cylinders. And avoiding small talk or wanting to walk alone, it's all about saving that precious mental energy for the deep, creative thinking that really fuels you. Okay, let's shift gears now. We're moving from traits that are about pure mental efficiency to ones that are about adaptation. These are behaviors that were forged, sometimes in the fire of our earliest experiences, creating this powerful and logical sense of independence. This quote, man, it just says it all, doesn't it? For so many people who are incredibly self-reliant, that strength wasn't something they chose to get ahead. It was a tool, a necessary tool their brain had to develop to navigate a world that felt unpredictable. It was all about survival. So how does this actually happen? Well, the psychological path is pretty clear. It often starts with support in childhood. That's, well, inconsistent. So the brain learns a really crucial lesson. I can only count on myself. This isn't a conscious thought. It's a deep survival instinct kicking in. And then, as an adult, that wiring is still there, which makes this simple act of asking for help feel totally unnatural, maybe even a little bit scary. And that is such an important distinction to make. This isn't someone being antisocial or trying to push people away. From a psychological view, it's a deeply learned pattern of emotional self-protection. Your brain learned way back when that it had to be its own safety net. You know, this experience actually builds a pretty unique toolkit. To survive, these individuals often develop incredible empathy. They become experts at reading the emotional shifts in a room. But that skill comes paired with cautious trust and a mind that's always a little bit on alert. And maybe the biggest challenge of all, learning how to accept the kind of support and care that they just never had growing up. All right, for our final section, let's talk about a set of behaviors that are all about one thing: protecting your mental energy in what can feel like an overwhelmingly noisy world. This is the psychology behind our deep need for mental space. So to get this, we have to talk about something called cognitive load. Just think of it like your brain's RAM or processing power. Every little thing in your environment, every notification on your phone, every tiny decision you have to make, it all uses up this limited resource. And for some of us, that feeling of overload is really, really intense. And this is exactly why something like minimalism can feel so life-changing. It's not just a trend, it's a direct hack to lower your cognitive load. I mean, just look at the difference here. A cluttered space is constantly demanding your brain's attention, while a simplified one, it just frees you up. It lets you focus on what actually matters. Yeah, this really isn't about being a neat freak. For a brain that's highly sensitive, physical clutter is literally processed as mental noise. It's like a low-level hum of stress in the background. And when you clear it away, it brings this incredible sense of calm and clarity. Now, this search for mental peace, it definitely extends to our digital world. There's this thing called social comparison theory, which basically says we're all wired to figure out our own worth by seeing how we stack up against others. In social media, well, it just puts that natural instinct on steroids, creating this endless and often really damaging comparison game. So when you meet someone who's just not really on social media, it's probably not because they have something to hide. Psychology suggests it's often a sign of incredible inner strength. They have a high need for privacy, a sense of self-esteem that doesn't need likes to feel real, and a clear idea of who they are. They are actively choosing to protect their mental peace instead of putting on a public performance. Okay, so let's tie all of this together. We've gone from looking at these habits as weird quirks to really understanding the psychological systems that are driving them. The whole point here is to shift ourselves from self-judgment to genuine self-understanding. If you walk away with just one thing today, please let it be this. Your mind is not just a random jumble of habits. It's a logical, brilliant system that has built these behaviors for very good reasons. To be more efficient, to keep you safe, and to find some clarity in a pretty chaotic world. So instead of calling yourself indecisive, try thorough. Instead of messy, how about selectively organized? What looks aloof might just be self-aware and private. These aren't just nicer words, you know? They are way more accurate descriptions of what's actually going on inside your head. So, I'll just leave you with this one last question to think about. Now that you can see the logic behind some of your own patterns, what part of yourself are you going to finally stop fighting against and instead start to understand and work with? Because honestly, the answer to that could change everything for you.